The ballroom glittered under 1,000 tiny lights, and Rebecca's heart should have been soaring. Instead, it felt like stones sinking through water. She stood motionless in her burgundy evening gown, the one she had searched for across 12 different stores, while her husband Marcus held up plain white apron in front of 300 guests assembled for the grand opening of the Harborview Hotel. "Come here, sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice amplified through the microphone clipped to his tuxedo. That smile spread across his face, the one he wore when he wanted something but pretended it was no big deal. The kitchen crew called in sick and were desperate. You know how these things are. "Just help us out for a couple hours?" Laughter rolled through the crowd like a wave. Rebecca's cheeks burned as hundreds of eyes locked onto her. These weren't just random people. They were business investors, magazine journalists, social media personalities with cameras already recording, and city officials who could make or break a hotel's reputation. This night was supposed to belong to both of them. She had spent 6 years listening to Marcus dream out loud about owning a hotel. She had worked overtime at her job to keep them afloat during construction. She had even suggested the name Harborview when he couldn't decide between 5 different options. "Marcus, I really don't think," she began, but he cut her off smoothly. "Please, Rebecca, you understand how critical tonight is. I can't have dirty dishes stacking up back there during the most important evening of my career. You get that, right?" The way he phrased it made her refusal seem cruel, like she would be the villain who destroyed his dreams if she said no. Victoria, the young marketing director Marcus had hired 3 months ago, stepped forward from the crowd. Her expression was sympathetic, but her eyes held something else. Something colder. "I would totally help," Victoria said sweetly, "but someone needs to manage the guest experience out here. We can't have everything fall apart just because of a staffing issue." More chuckles rippled through the audience. Someone whispered loudly enough for Rebecca to hear, "Well, now we know who wears the pants." Rebecca's hand shook as she accepted the apron. The fabric felt rough and cheap against her palms, nothing like the smooth burgundy silk of her dress. She had worked 2 jobs to help Marcus finish his hospitality management degree, while she postponed her own plans to study architecture. She had used money from her grandmother's estate to help fund this building when Marcus's original investors withdrew their support at the last moment. Her money had purchased the Italian marble in the lobby, the custom light fixtures overhead, the imported furniture in every guest room. But her name appeared nowhere. Not on the ownership documents. Not on the promotional materials. Not once in Marcus's opening speech about hard work and perseverance and making dreams. Reality dawned as she walked through the crowd toward the kitchen, her heels clicking against the marble floor her inheritance had bought. The whispers followed her like shadows. "I thought she was his business partner." "No, just the wife." How utterly humiliating. "Did you see her face? That dress doesn't suit her at all. I heard she's been bleeding through his money like crazy." The kitchen was absolute chaos. Mountains of dirty plates covered every available surface, and the 2 staff members who had actually shown up looked overwhelmed and apologetic. One of them, a young man named Tyler, stared at Rebecca in her evening gown and apron with obvious confusion. "Ma'am, are you supposed to be in here?" Tyler asked carefully. "Apparently," Rebecca replied, barely keeping her voice steady. She tied the apron over her gown and plunged her hands in the scalding, soapy water. The burgundy silk would probably be destroyed by splashes and steam, but she couldn't think about that. Not now. Through the kitchen door's small window, she could hear Marcus's voice continuing on the microphone, charming the guests with stories about his vision and determination. He spoke about sacrifice and persistence as though he had accomplished everything alone. 1 hour crawled by. Then 2. Rebecca's feet screamed in her heels, and her hands turned raw from the harsh water. Her carefully styled hair fell in damp strands around her face. Through that small kitchen window, she watched Victoria laughing with guests, touching Marcus's arm, fitting seamlessly into the role of sophisticated hostess, the role Rebecca should have been playing. Was this really her life? Was this who she had become? It was nearly midnight when Marcus finally pushed through the kitchen door. He didn't glance at the mountains of dishes Rebecca had washed or thank the exhausted staff who had stayed late. He looked at Rebecca with visible annoyance. "Are you almost finished? I need you to come say goodbye to the mayor. It looks terrible that you've been hiding back here all evening." Hiding? As if she had chosen this. "I'm washing the dishes you told me to wash," Rebecca said quietly. "Well, hurry up then. And maybe fix your hair first. You look exhausted." He left before she could respond. Tyler and the other staff member exchanged uncomfortable glances. They had heard everything. Rebecca untied the apron with numb fingers. Her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator showed a woman she barely recognized. Damp hair, smudged makeup, shoulders curved inward in defeat. This wasn't who she was supposed to be. This wasn't the life she had imagined when she married Marcus 11 years ago. She walked back to the lobby, where only a handful of guests remained. The mayor had already left. Marcus stood with Victoria and several investors, and when he saw Rebecca, disappointment flashed across his face. "Never mind," he said. "Too late now." Victoria touched his shoulder with practiced sympathy. "Don't worry. There will be plenty of other opportunities." Rebecca stood there in her ruined dress, smelling of dish soap and sweat, while her husband and his marketing director discussed future plans as though she wasn't present, as though she hadn't just spent 3 hours in a sweltering kitchen while they enjoyed champagne and success. That night, riding home in silence while Marcus scrolled through social media reactions to the opening, Rebecca made a decision. She didn't announce it. She didn't cry or confront him. She simply decided that this was the last time Marcus would humiliate her. The last time she would make herself invisible for his comfort. The last time she would sacrifice her dignity for his success. She just didn't know yet how completely everything was about to change. The next morning, Rebecca woke to an empty bed. Marcus had left early. A note on the nightstand said he had breakfast meetings with potential investors. The house felt different in the daylight, larger and lonelier than before. She finally got up around 9 and made coffee in the kitchen they had renovated 4 years ago. Her money, his design choices. That pattern ran through their entire marriage, she realized. Her contributions made invisible while his achievements took center stage. Marcus's tuxedo jacket hung on a dining room chair, abandoned in his rush. Rebecca picked it up to hang in the closet, and a piece of paper fell from the inside pocket. She bent to retrieve it, expecting a receipt or business card. Instead, she found a handwritten letter on cream paper with the initials VR embossed in silver at the top. Victoria Reynolds' her hands trembled as she read, "My dearest Marcus, last night was absolutely perfect. Watching you shine in front of all those people, knowing that soon we won't have to hide anymore, it made everything worthwhile. The hotel is just our beginning. Thank you for the necklace. I'll cherish it always, just like I cherish every stolen moment we share. I know the situation with Rebecca is complicated, but you've been clear that you're only staying until the hotel is established. I can wait a little longer. We've already waited 18 months. What's a few more? All my love." Victoria Rebecca read it 3 times. Then a fourth. 18 months. They had been having an affair for 18 months. She thought back to when Victoria started working as Marcus's marketing director, right after they broke ground on the hotel project. The late meetings. The business trips. The nights Marcus came home smelling of perfume. He claimed came from greeting female investors. All of it had been right in front of her. The necklace mention stuck in her mind. She opened her laptop and checked their joint credit card statements, something she rarely did because Marcus always insisted he handled the finances. There, 4 weeks ago, was a purchase at an expensive jewelry store for $7,000. The same day he told Rebecca they needed to cut back on spending and suggested she stop her monthly donations to her grandmother's scholarship fund. She kept scrolling, and the pattern emerged like a photograph developing in solution. Expensive dinners at restaurants they had never been to together. Hotel rooms in the city where they already lived. Charges at designer boutiques. Spa packages. All of it disguised among business expenses, spread out enough that she hadn't noticed during her occasional glances at the bills. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Lunch meeting running late. Don't wait up for dinner either. Big investor. Rebecca stared at the message. Before yesterday, she would have believed him. She would have heated up leftovers alone and felt grateful he was working so hard for their future. Now she wondered if Victoria was sitting across from him right now, planning the life they would build once Rebecca was gone. Rebecca spent the rest of that day searching not frantically, but methodically. She went through Marcus's home office, photographing documents with her phone. She checked the safe where they kept important papers and found the hotel deed. Marcus's name only. Despite her inheritance funding nearly half the construction, she found investment papers, partnership agreements, business plans. Her money was everywhere. Her name was nowhere. In the back of a filing cabinet, she discovered a folder labeled personal. Inside were bank statements for an account she had never seen, one in Marcus's name only. The balances made her stomach drop. Over the past 80 months, he had transferred nearly $180,000 from their joint account to this private one. Money she had inherited from her grandmother. Money from the sale of her childhood home. Money she thought was safely invested in their future together. There were also printed emails between Marcus and Victoria discussing their plans. They had been careful not to say anything too explicit, but the meaning was crystal clear. Once the hotel was profitable, Marcus planned to divorce Rebecca. Victoria had already picked out apartments for them to view. They discussed which of Rebecca's friends they would need to manage to control the narrative. She'd be upset at first. Marcus had written, but she's always been reasonable. We'll offer her a fair settlement, and she move on. She's too passive to fight. Passive. The word hit her like a slap. Was that really how he saw her? After 11 years of supporting his dreams, after putting her own career aside, after funding his success with her inheritance, he thought she was passive. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had been, but not anymore. Rebecca photographed everything. The emails, the bank statements, the hotel deed, the credit card charges. She uploaded them to a secure cloud account Marcus didn't know about. Then she carefully put everything back exactly as she had found it. That night, Marcus came home at 11, smelling of wine and Victoria's perfume. He kissed Rebecca's forehead like everything was normal. "How was your day?" he asked. "Quiet," Rebecca replied. "How was the investor meeting?" "Promising. This guy might put in another 100,000. Things are really coming together." He went to shower, and Rebecca sat in the living room with her phone in her hand. She could confront him now. She could throw the letter in his face and scream about the betrayal. But what would that accomplish? He would deny it, or he would turn it around on her somehow. He was talented at that, at making her doubt her own perceptions, at making his mistakes feel like her failures. No. Confrontation wasn't the answer. Marcus had been planning his exit strategy for 18 months, carefully positioning himself to leave her with nothing while he and Victoria built their new life on the foundation of Rebecca's inheritance. It was time for Rebecca to plan too. The next morning, she called a lawyer. The law office sat on the 30th floor of a downtown building with windows overlooking the city Rebecca had called home for 16 years. The lawyer, Catherine Walsh, was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through the pleasant facade Rebecca had spent years perfecting. "Tell me everything," Catherine said once they were settled in her private office. "Don't leave anything out, even if it seems small." Rebecca had prepared for this meeting, organizing all her evidence into a folder on her tablet. But when she started talking, the words tumbled out in a rush. The humiliation at the hotel opening, the letter from Victoria, the hidden bank account, the 18-month affair, the plans to divorce her once the hotel was profitable. Catherine listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When Rebecca finished, the lawyer was quiet for a long moment. "Do you know exactly how much of your inheritance went into the hotel?" Catherine asked. "Not exactly. Maybe 400,000. Marcus handled most of the financial paperwork. That's what we need to establish first. I'm going to recommend you hire a forensic accountant, someone who can trace every dollar and show exactly where your money went." Catherine leaned forward. "Rebecca, from what you're telling me, this isn't just a divorce case. This could be financial fraud. If your husband used your inheritance for his business without your informed consent, if he transferred funds without your knowledge, that's potentially criminal." Rebecca hadn't thought of it that way. She had been so focused on the affair, on the betrayal of trust, that she hadn't fully processed the financial manipulation. "What do I do now?" she asked. "First, don't let him know you're suspicious. Keep acting normal. Second, don't sign anything he gives you, no matter how innocent it seems. Third, start securing your own finances. Do you have any money in accounts that are only in your name?" Rebecca thought about it. "There's about $28,000 in an account my grandmother set up for me when I was younger. Marcus doesn't know about it. I never mentioned it because it seemed like my emergency fund." "Good. That's your escape money. Don't touch it yet, but know it's there." Over the following weeks, Rebecca lived two lives. In one life, she was Marcus's devoted wife. She attended hotel events, smiled for photos, listened to his stories about difficult guests and staffing problems. She asked interested questions about Victoria's marketing strategies. And Marcus never suspected the name made Rebecca's stomach turn in her other life. She met twice a week with the forensic accountant Catherine had recommended. His name was David Chen, a quiet man in his 40s who approached money the way a detective approached crime scenes. The picture David built was devastating. Rebecca's inheritance, $540,000 from her grandmother's estate, had been systematically funneled into Marcus's hotel project. But Marcus had structured everything so that Rebecca had no ownership stake. The hotel was registered as a sole proprietorship under Marcus's name. The business loan he had obtained listed Rebecca's inheritance as his personal assets used for collateral. "He's been very clever," David explained during one meeting. "Everything is legal on paper because technically, once your inheritance went into the joint account, it became marital property. And spouses can use marital property for business investments." "So I have no case?" Rebecca asked, her heart sinking. "I didn't say that. The issue is disclosure and intent. Did he fully explain to you that your inheritance would be converted to business assets you would have no direct claim to? Did he get your informed consent? Or did he tell you it was a joint investment while actually excluding you from ownership?" Rebecca remembered the conversations from 4 years ago. Marcus had said, "We should use some of your grandmother's money to get the hotel started. It'll be our legacy, not his legacy." Our legacy. She had signed papers he put in front of her, trusting that our meant what it should mean between married people. "He never told me my name wouldn't be on anything," Rebecca said. "He said, we and our and us. I thought I was investing in something we own together." "That's fraud," David said simply. "Misrepresentation of material facts to obtain your assets. Catherine filed the divorce papers on a Thursday morning. By noon, Marcus received the notification at the hotel. By 2 in the afternoon, he was calling Rebecca's phone repeatedly. She didn't answer. She was sitting in Catherine's office, going through the next phase of the plan. "He'll come home angry," Catherine warned. "Don't be alone with him if you feel unsafe, but also don't leave the house yet. We haven't secured your rights to the property." "I don't think he'll hurt me," Rebecca said. "He's never been violent. Anger makes people unpredictable. Just be careful." Rebecca went home and waited. She had already moved her important documents to a safety deposit, box Marcus didn't know about, her grandmother's jewelry, her passport, her birth certificate, the things that mattered. Marcus burst through the door at 3. His face was flushed, his tie loosened, his usually perfect hair disheveled. "What is this?" He waved his phone showing the legal notification. "You filed for divorce without even talking to me?" Rebecca stood in the kitchen, her hands steady even though her heart raced. "Did you talk to me before you started an affair with Victoria? Did you talk to me before you transferred $180,000 to your private account? Did you talk to me before you decided our marriage had an expiration date?" The color drained from his face. "You went through my things. You went through my inheritance. That's different. That was business. That was investment in our future." "Your future," Rebecca corrected. "The hotel is in your name only. I own nothing. That was the plan, wasn't it? Use my money to build your dream, then leave me with nothing once it was successful." Marcus's expression shifted through several emotions: shock, anger, calculation. She watched him decide how to play this. He chose manipulation. "Rebecca, honey, you've misunderstood." He stepped closer, using the gentle voice he employed when he wanted something. "The hotel is in my name for liability reasons, but it's ours. Everything I do is for us. I don't know what you think you found, but this is insane. We can work this out. Call your lawyer and stop this before it goes too far." I found Victoria's letter. I found the emails. I found the secret bank account and the plans to divorce me. I hired a forensic accountant who traced every dollar of my inheritance. Don't lie to me anymore, Marcus. I'm done being passive. His face hardened. The mask dropped. Fine. You want to do this? Fine. But you're going to look like a fool. You have no proof of anything. The money in our joint account is marital property. I'm allowed to use it. The hotel is my business. You signed papers agreeing to all of this. I signed papers you told me were joint investments. That's fraud. That's your interpretation. My lawyer will have a different one. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the bank. As of today, you're cut off from our accounts. You can't do that. The accounts are joint. Watch me. He made the call right there, putting it on speaker. When the bank representative answered, Marcus said, "This is Marcus Thompson. I need to freeze all transactions on my joint accounts. My wife and I are separating, and I need to protect our assets." The representative was professionally sympathetic. "I understand. Mr. Thompson, we can place a hold that requires both signatures for any withdrawals over $100. Marcus smiled at Rebecca. Perfect. After he left, slamming the door behind him, Rebecca called Catherine. He froze the accounts, she reported. Expected, Catherine said calmly. Don't worry. We'll file an emergency motion for spousal support and temporary funds. The judge will order him to maintain the status quo. She paused. How are you doing? That couldn't have been easy. I'm okay, Rebecca said, and surprisingly, she was. Angry, yes. Hurt, definitely. But also clear-headed in a way she hadn't been in years. What's next? Next, Victoria is going to call you. What? Why would she call me? Because Marcus's lawyer will tell him that you could file claims against her, which could cost her money. So they'll try the sympathy approach. She'll call crying, saying it's all a misunderstanding, that Marcus loves you, that she's willing to step aside. It's a manipulation tactic to get you to drop the case or accept a bad settlement. Catherine was right. 3 hours later, Victoria called. "Rebecca, it's Victoria. Please, don't hang up." Rebecca's finger hovered over the end button, but curiosity won. "What do you want?" "I just need you to know that this is all a huge misunderstanding. Marcus loves you so much. He's been incredibly upset about this divorce filing. I think maybe you found some emails that were taken out of context. The email where you talked about waiting for him to leave me? That context?" Victoria's voice got smaller. I was confused. We work closely together, and sometimes lines get blurred. But Marcus has been clear that his marriage to you is his priority. I think we all just need to sit down and talk about this like adults. I'm not interested in talking. Please, Rebecca. You're ruining his business. The hotel needs both of you focused. Gregory says investors are getting nervous about the divorce. If you care about all the work you both put into this, you'll reconsider. There it was. The real concern. Money. Victoria, let me be very clear. I don't care about Marcus's business. I don't care about his investors. I don't care what happens to the hotel. And I definitely don't care what happens to you. Don't call me again. She hung up and blocked the number. Over the next several weeks, the legal battle intensified. Catherine filed motions for temporary spousal support, access to financial records, and exclusive use of the marital home. Marcus's lawyer filed counter-motions claiming Rebecca was trying to destroy his business out of spite. The judge ordered Marcus to pay Rebecca $3,000 a month in temporary support and granted both of them access to copies of all financial documents. The marital home would remain shared until the divorce was final. Marcus complied with the judge's orders, but barely. He transferred the support money at exactly midnight on the last day it was due each month. He made copies of financial documents, but left them in stacks of unsorted papers that Rebecca and David had to organize themselves. But Rebecca had something Marcus didn't. Expect the $28,000 from her grandmother's old account, plus the temporary support. It was enough to start planning her next move. She wasn't just fighting for what Marcus had taken. She was building something new, something that would be entirely hers. Rebecca stood in the empty building on Harbor Street, 4 blocks from Marcus's hotel, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Excitement. The space was smaller than the harbor view, only 10 rooms, compared to Marcus's 45, but the structure was beautiful. Original hardwood floors, high ceilings with decorative molding, large windows that flooded the lobby with natural light. It needs work, the real estate agent Monica said apologetically. It's been sitting empty for 18 months since the previous owners retired. But the price reflects that. The price was $190,000. More than Rebecca had in her emergency account, but less than she could potentially get with investors and a small business loan. The bigger question was whether she could actually do this. Can I have a few days to think about it? Rebecca asked. Of course. But I should tell you, there's another interested party scheduled to view it tomorrow. Rebecca walked through the building alone after Monica left to take a phone call. The rooms were dusty and outdated, with floral wallpaper from decades ago and bathroom fixtures that needed replacing. But she could see the potential. Each room had good natural light. The location was excellent, close to the waterfront and the business district. The building had character that Marcus's modern hotel lacked. She thought about her architecture degree, abandoned a decade ago when Marcus said hotel management was more practical. She thought about all the suggestions she had made for the Harborview that Marcus had dismissed as too expensive or off-brand. She thought about every skill she had developed managing their home, organizing events, coordinating contractors, all the invisible work that Marcus never valued. What if she stopped asking Marcus for permission? What if she stopped waiting for him to see her value? What if she just did it? She called David Chun. "I need to know exactly what I can afford," she told him. "I want to buy a building and start my own hotel." During the divorce? David sounded surprised. That could complicate things. Can it be done legally? Yes, technically. Any assets you acquire after filing for divorce are separate property, not marital. But Marcus's lawyer will argue you're using marital funds or funds that should go to the settlement. The money is from an account Marcus doesn't know about. My grandmother set it up for me before I was married. It was always mine. Then, legally you're clear. Strategically, ... David paused. It might actually be brilliant. If you can show the judge you're building a successful business, it demonstrates you don't need ongoing support from Marcus. It also shows you're taking initiative to secure your own future. So, I can do it? You can do it. Want me to look at the financials of the property? Rebecca sent him the details, and he called back 3 hours later. The building is underpriced for the location. With renovations, you're probably looking at another $130,000 to make it guest-ready. Can you get that kind of financing? I don't know. I've never tried. You might be surprised. You have excellent credit that Marcus hasn't ruined yet. And if you have a solid business plan, banks like small boutique hotels. They're popular right now. That night, instead of dwelling on the divorce or Marcus's latest hostile text message, Rebecca opened her laptop and started building a business plan. She had helped Marcus write his proposal to investors years ago, essentially doing all the work while he presented it. She knew what banks wanted to see: market analysis, competitive advantage, financial projections, marketing strategy. She worked until 3 in the morning, fueled by coffee and a determination she had forgotten she possessed. Her hotel wouldn't compete with the Harborview on size or luxury. Instead, it would offer something different: intimate, personal service, artistic design that showcased local creators, sustainability features, a boutique experience where guests felt like individuals rather than room numbers. She called it the Beacon Inn. Light for people looking for something better. Over the next month, Rebecca threw herself into the project with intensity that surprised her. She met with 3 different banks and got approved for a business loan of $90,000, with her building purchase as collateral. She found an investor, a woman named Patricia, who owned 2 successful restaurants downtown and was looking to diversify. Patricia agreed to invest $40,000 in exchange for 15% ownership. "I like your vision," Patricia said over coffee. "I like that you're doing this during a divorce. Shows courage. My husband thinks I'm too passive to fight back." Rebecca admitted. "Good. Let him keep thinking that until you prove him wrong." Marcus found out about the Beacon Inn when a mutual friend mentioned seeing Rebecca meeting with contractors. He showed up at the property on a Tuesday afternoon, his face tight with anger. "You're opening a hotel?" he demanded. "Are you insane? You don't know anything about running a hotel. I've been watching you do it for 6 years, Rebecca said calmly. "How hard can it be?" She continued reviewing paint samples with the designer, a woman named Elena, who raised her eyebrows at the interruption. "This is my industry," Marcus said. "My territory. You can't just come in here and think you can compete with me. I'm not competing with you. I'm building something different. With what money? You can't use marital funds for this. I'm not. This is completely separate from our divorce." My lawyer confirmed it's legal. Marcus's jaw clenched. "I'll have my lawyer look into that. And good luck getting any decent staff. Everyone in this city knows I'll blacklist anyone who works for you." "Elena," The designer spoke up. Actually, Mr. Thompson, I quit working on your hotel 2 months ago because you refused to pay my invoice. I'm sure Rebecca will be a better client. After Marcus left, Elena grinned. That felt good. Sorry if I overstepped. You didn't, Rebecca assured her. Is it true about the unpaid invoice? 4 months overdue. I'm taking him to small claims court next month. Elena returned to the paint samples. Now, I'm thinking this sage green for the rooms. It's calming, but still interesting. What do you think? Rebecca thought it was perfect. The renovation consumed Rebecca in the best possible way. She was on site every day, making decisions, solving problems, learning as she went. She hired a staff of 5, a manager, a front desk clerk, 2 housekeepers, and a maintenance person. All of them were people who had applied to work at the Harborview and been rejected by Marcus as not a good fit. He wanted people with too little personality, said James, the front desk clerk. He wanted robots who would follow orders without questions. I prefer working for someone who values thinking. The hotel came together faster than Rebecca expected. Elena worked magic with the design, creating spaces that felt both elegant and welcoming. Each room was different, decorated with art from local creators. The common areas had comfortable seating and shelves of books. The small breakfast room featured a menu using ingredients from nearby farms. It wasn't fancy like the Harborview. It was better. It had sold out 4 months after filing for divorce. Rebecca opened the Beacon Inn. She didn't have a big gala with 300 guests. She had a quiet opening with 40 people. Her liar Catherine, her accountant David, her investor Patricia, her staff, and some old friends who had stood by her through the divorce. No crystal chandeliers. No pretense. Just good wine, simple food, and genuine joy. Marcus didn't come, obviously. But Victoria did, showing up uninvited and claiming she just wanted to congratulate Rebecca. It took everything in Rebecca's power not to have her escorted out. But she simply said, "Thank you for stopping by. But this event is for people who supported me. You need to leave." Victoria's face went red, but she left. The first week, the Beacon Inn booked 3 rooms. The second week, 6. By the end of the first month, they were at 75% occupancy. A travel blogger visited and wrote a glowing review. A magazine featured the hotel in an article about boutique stays with character. Marcus's hotel was still more successful in terms of sheer numbers, but it was also bleeding money due to high overhead and staffing problems. Rebecca heard through industry connections that guests complained about impersonal service and being charged extra for basic amenities. The Beacon got the opposite feedback: personal touches, fair prices, staff who actually cared. 3 months into operation, Rebecca received an email from a hospitality investment group asking if she would be interested in expanding to a second location. They had seen the magazine article and loved her concept. She sat in her small office at the hotel, reading the email 3 times. A second location. 7 months ago, she had been washing dishes in a kitchen apron while her husband humiliated her in front of hundreds of people. Now investors wanted to fund her expansion. She thought about calling someone to share the news but realized there was no one she needed to tell. This success was hers alone, and that made it even sweeter. She replied to the email, "I'm very interested. Let's set up a meeting." The Harborview Hotel's problems started small. A 1-star review, complaining about cold breakfast food, a mix-up with a reservation that left a family without a room, a broken air conditioner that took 4 days to fix. Marcus dismissed these as normal operational issues that all hotels faced. But the problems multiplied. Staff turnover became a crisis. The Harborview went through 3 front desk managers in 5 months. The head housekeeper quit without notice, taking half the housekeeping staff with her. They all ended up working at smaller hotels in the area, including the Beacon. where Rebecca paid less but treated people like human beings instead of interchangeable parts. "You're poaching my employees," Marcus accused during one of their mandatory divorce mediation sessions. "I'm hiring qualified people who apply to work for me," Rebecca corrected. "If they prefer working at my hotel, that says something about your management style, not my hiring practices." The mediator, a patient woman named Helen, intervened before Marcus could respond. "Let's focus on the financial disclosures for the divorce settlement, please." But Marcus's hotel troubles were relevant to the divorce because they affected his ability to pay the settlement Catherine was demanding. David's forensic accounting had proven that Marcus used Rebecca's inheritance to fund 42% of the Harborview's construction and initial operations. Catherine was arguing that Rebecca deserved 42% of the hotel's value, plus damages for fraud. Marcus's lawyer argued the hotel was worth less than the outstanding debts, making Rebecca's claim essentially worthless. "My client took a risk on a business venture that isn't as profitable as hoped," Marcus's lawyer said. "That's not fraud. That's entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship was someone else's money obtained through misrepresentation," Catherine countered. "Your client told Rebecca Thompson she was investing in their joint future. He neglected to mention she would have zero ownership and he would be planning to divorce her before the hotel even opened." Helen looked at the evidence David had compiled, the emails between Marcus and Victoria, discussing divorce timelines, the ownership documents that excluded Rebecca entirely, the secret bank account where Marcus had been hiding money. "Mr. Thompson, I'm going to be honest," Helen said. "This doesn't look good for you. I strongly recommend you come to the table with a fair settlement offer, or a judge is going to make decisions you like, even less." Marcus's settlement offer arrived 2 days later, $50,000 and a promise not to interfere with her little hotel business. Catherine called Rebecca immediately. "It's insulting. Your documented contribution to his hotel was $540,000. He's offering less than 10%. "Rejected," Rebecca said without hesitation. "We're going to trial then. Are you prepared for that?" Completely. What Marcus didn't know was that Rebecca's little hotel business was thriving. The expansion to a second location was moving forward, with the investment group providing funding for a property in a coastal town 2 hours away. Rebecca spent her days running between the two locations, exhausted but energized in a way she had never been during her marriage. The Beacon Inn's success was based on things Marcus had always dismissed as impractical: treating employees well, which created genuine customer service, investing in quality experiences rather than flashy but hollow luxury, listening to feedback and making changes quickly. Simple concepts that Marcus considered too expensive or too much trouble. Meanwhile, the Harborview continued its decline. A health inspector found violations in the kitchen, nothing dangerous, but enough to require a reinspection and generate bad publicity. A wedding party left a scathing review after their event coordinator mixed up dietary restrictions, small disasters that individually were manageable but together created a narrative of a hotel that was all style and no substance. Victoria had quit the Harborview 4 months after the divorce filing. Rebecca heard through mutual acquaintances that Victoria had moved to another city, taking a position at a different hotel. The affair had become known in the industry after the divorce filings became public record, and her reputation suffered. Marcus was running the Harborview alone now, and it showed. He had never actually managed the day-to-day operations before. Rebecca had handled much of that work, invisibly fielding complaints, solving staffing issues, maintaining relationships with vendors. Victoria had covered the rest. Without either of them, Marcus floundered. The divorce trial was scheduled for October, 8 months after Rebecca had filed. Catherine prepared meticulously, organizing their evidence into a presentation that showed the timeline of Marcus's deception. David would testify as an expert witness. The courtroom was smaller than Rebecca expected, with wood paneling and fluorescent lights that gave everything a slightly harsh glow. She sat next to Catherine at the plaintiff's table, her hands folded calmly in her lap despite her racing heart. Judge Andrea Walsh entered. Everyone stood. She was a woman in her 50s, with gray streaks in her dark hair and an expression that suggested she had seen every trick divorce lawyers could pull. The trial lasted 3 days. David walked through his forensic accounting report, calmly and methodically, explaining to the judge exactly how Rebecca's $540,000 inheritance had been traced through various accounts into the Gens. Harborview Hotel's construction and operations. Rebecca testified about her marriage, the years she had worked multiple jobs to put Marcus through hotel management school, the middle years when she had used her inheritance to support his dream, the final years when he had stopped including her in decisions and started planning a future that didn't include her. On day 2, the most damaging evidence came from the emails between Marcus and Victoria that Catherine entered into evidence. The judge read them in silence, her expression growing colder with each page. "Mr. Thompson," Judge Walsh said, "did you write these emails?" "Yes, Your Honor, but they were private communications taken out of context. They're dated communications showing you planned to divorce your wife once your business was profitable, that you transferred marital funds to secret accounts to hide them from her, and that you gave your affair partner partial ownership in a business funded by your wife's inheritance. Is there context that makes that acceptable?" Marcus didn't answer. By the end of day 2, Marcus looked defeated. His lawyer requested a recess to discuss settlement options. Catherine and Rebecca met in a conference room during the lunch break. "They're going to offer more money," Catherine said. "Probably $200,000 plus some share of the hotel." "What are you thinking?" Rebecca had been thinking about this for months. "I don't want the hotel. I don't want to be tied to him through shared business ownership. I want cash compensation equal to my inheritance plus damages. I want $650,000. He might not have it. Then he can sell the hotel or take out a loan. Not my problem." On day 3, Judge Walsh delivered her ruling. "I find the evidence overwhelming that Mr. Thompson engaged in deliberate financial misrepresentation and fraud against his wife. He converted her inheritance into business assets she had no claim to, hid money in secret accounts, and planned to divorce her while leaving her destitute, all while conducting an 18-month affair. These actions show clear intent to defraud. She ordered Marcus to pay Rebecca $580,000. The full inheritance amount plus damages. She ordered the Harborview Hotel to be appraised, and if Marcus couldn't pay the judgment within 60 days, the hotel would be sold to satisfy the debt. Additionally, Judge Walsh continued, "I'm awarding Miss Thompson her legal fees and accounting costs, which total approximately $90,000. Mr. Thompson, you have 60 days to satisfy this judgment or face asset liquidation." Marcus's face went white.
"This case represents one of the more egregious examples of financial abuse I've seen," the judge said. "Mr. Thompson systematically stole from his wife while making her feel worthless. The fact that he's now facing the consequences of those choices is not unfair. It's justice." Outside the courtroom, Catherine hugged Rebecca tightly. "You did it. You actually did it." Rebecca felt light, like a weight she had been carrying for years had finally lifted. "What happens now?" "Now he has 60 days to find $670,000, or the Harborview gets sold at auction. Either way, you'll get paid what you're owed." "I hope he can pay it," Rebecca said. "I hope he finds a way to keep his hotel, learns from this, and becomes a better person. But either way, I'm done. I'm free." Catherine smiled. "That's the healthiest attitude I've seen from any client ever. What are you going to do now?" I have a third Beacon Inn location to open. Want to come to the grand opening next month? Wouldn't miss it. 60 days after the judgment, Marcus sold the Harborview Hotel to a national chain for enough to pay Rebecca's settlement and cover his remaining debts, with almost nothing left over. Rebecca received the full $670,000 through a wire transfer on a Wednesday morning while she was reviewing architectural plans for the third Beacon location. She stared at her bank balance for a long moment. More money than her original inheritance, just as quantified in numbers. But it didn't change how she felt. The money was important, yes, but it wasn't the point anymore. The point was that she had fought for herself and won. The point was that she had built something better than what she had lost. The point was that she was happy, truly happy, in a way she hadn't been during her entire marriage to Marcus. The third Beacon Inn opened in January, 18 months after Rebecca had filed for divorce. It was the largest of the 3 locations, with 16 rooms and a small cafe that featured local cuisine. The design was bolder than the first 2 properties, with murals from regional artists and a rooftop space where guests could watch sunsets. Patricia, Rebecca's first investor, had brought in 2 additional partners, and they were already discussing a 4th location. The Beacon Inn brand was becoming known for something special, authentic hospitality that made guests feel valued rather than processed. 5 years after washing dishes in a kitchen while wearing an evening gown, Rebecca stood on a stage at the Regional Hospitality Awards, accepting the award for Innovative Independent Hotel Group. The Beacon Inn had grown to 6 locations across 2 states, with 2 more in development. She wore a different dress, not burgundy this time, but a deep blue that felt both professional and powerful. Her speech was brief, focused on thanking her team, her investors, and the guests who had supported her vision. What she didn't mention was Marcus, sitting somewhere in the audience of 800 hospitality professionals, watching her receive the award he had once dreamed of winning. After the ceremony, Patricia found Rebecca in the hallway. "Look at you," Patricia said. "5 years ago, you were being humiliated at your husband's hotel opening. Now you're a successful businesswoman with 6 hotels and more on the way. That's not just success, that's triumph." Rebecca looked around at the celebration. Her staff from all 6 Beacon locations had come, the investors and partners who had believed in her vision, the friends who had supported her through the divorce. "It doesn't feel like triumph," Rebecca said. "It just feels like life, like I'm finally living the way I was supposed to all along." "That's the best kind of triumph," Patricia said, "the kind where you don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just exist in your success and happiness." Later that night, as Rebecca drove home to the house she had bought with part of her settlement, a small Victorian with a garden where she grew herbs and flowers, she thought about the woman she had been 5 years ago, the one who had accepted humiliation because she thought that was what marriage required, the one who had made herself small so her husband could feel big, the one who had believed she couldn't survive without him. That woman was gone. The woman who replaced her was strong, successful, and surrounded by people who valued her. The woman who replaced her had learned that the best revenge wasn't destruction, it was creation, building a better life, becoming a better version of yourself. As Rebecca fell asleep that night, she thought about the lessons she would want others to learn from her story. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. When someone tries to make you small, you don't have to shrink to fit their vision. You can choose to grow beyond their limitations instead. The greatest victory isn't watching your betrayer fail. It's building something so beautiful from your pain that their opinion becomes irrelevant. Dignity isn't given by others. It's claimed by yourself. And sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is discovering you're strong enough to stand alone. Marcus had thought she was too passive to fight back. He had been wrong, but Rebecca didn't need his acknowledgement of that mistake. She didn't need his regret or his apology or his understanding. She had already moved on to a life where he simply didn't matter anymore. And that, she realized, was the truest form of freedom. The end.